Hello, I'm Paul Chek, and welcome to Spirituality or 10 Commandments. You choose Lesson 2. If you'd like more information on my other personal, professional, and spiritual development products, feel free to visit www.ppssuccess.com. Let's get started. Our learning objective today is to understand what mind is, and we'll look at how that relates to 10 Commandments in any way, shape, or form. First of all, as I mentioned in our first lecture, love is a code. When absolute emptiness, desire, meets absolute fullness, will, the marriage of those two creates vibration. The male, or the something, radiates outward with full potential, and the female draws inward like a black hole. So will is like a white hole, a star shining in every direction unconditionally, and desire is like a black hole. When they meet each other, vibration happens in every possible spectrum that could be known, or even what we don't know, but every possible vibration which goes ad infinitum. You can take a frequency and chop it and chop it and chop it and chop it and go forever. Once you get to something like 10 to the minus 33 Planck's constant, then anything tangible or choppable ceases to exist. That doesn't mean there's nothing there. It just means that we don't have the capacity to measure it. So vibration then equals mind. If there's no vibration, there can't be anything here. There can't be any thought. Thought itself is vibration. This is the origin. The empty meeting the full is the origin of Tai Chi. Shi, yin, empty, he, full, yang, meet each other and vibration is born. That's the origin of mind. So these are the two forces that create the entire universe. Tai Chi is the perpetual cycling of energy. Scientifically, energy in a closed system, in this case absolute, can't be lost, only transformed. Yin becomes yang. Wet becomes dry, hot becomes cold, day becomes night. All things that are created are born through this vibrational reality, but the moment something's born, it begins to radiate. So birth is the beginning of death. So if at birth you're in full working order, you move towards chaos or dissolution, and everything cycles in dissolution or chaos to order, or if you want to go entropy to neg-entropy. So entropy, disorder, chaos, neg-entropy, order. Everything's in a perpetual cycle. Here you can see I've listed the qualities of yin, the female, on the left in green, yang, the male, on the right in red. Body is slower moving vibrations than mind. Soul is the neutral force of unconditional love that acts just like an insulator in every electronic circuit. The soul is the now and the whole of you, which exists between all vibrations. The word Tao can be depicted as the line here between yin and yang, which is the point at which both charges, the negative and the positive, reconcile each other, becoming zero. So vibration equals mind. All thoughts exemplify vibration as seen on an electroencephalograph. Thoughts are moving electromagnetic potentialities or relativities. All thoughts are relative realities. So if you look down here at my Tai Chi symbol, yin says is. Yin is. Yin, emptiness, complete vastness. The female gives birth to something. So the empty uterus has an egg which is ignited by the male sperm, which then begins gestation, and then there is the process of fulfillment. That fulfillment is the nature of creation itself. Everything in the created universe is made of the empty and the full. A cup, a drinking cup, is only functional because it's empty, but the fullness of it gives you something to hang on to. How is your bone, your brain, your eyes, your body, your organs, a tree, anything, an atom, any different? It's not. The key thing here is that the mind operates on the principle of exclusion. So if I'm talking to you about a pear, and the pear is, I'm holding a pear, you see me talking about a pear, the bear metaphorically isn't. You can't have a pear and a bear in the mind at the same time, because it's really like a telephone or a cell phone. It only sends and receives on given frequencies, and if you're on my frequency, you're not typically on somebody else's frequency. So if my frequency is pear and the other frequency is bear, if you're talking about a pear, you can't be talking about a bear. So the mind, by definition, divides and chops, but God is wholeness. So the instant that you process anything with mind, which is what you have to do to have any perception of anything, you have excluded far more than you've included. If you're talking about a pear, you got the rest of the universe you're not talking about. So God being absolute inclusion, no mind conscious of X or anything can be capable of interpreting God, because God is undivided wholeness. You can't use a dividing machine to talk about wholeness. It simply doesn't work. You can't get a whole carrot after you throw it in a blender. It won't work. So if you look here at this beautiful chart, the absolute scale of relative cosmic reality, you see the universe, the creation. All persons, places, and things are manifestations of vibration. Matter, light, time, and space all express each other and can only be known relatively. You can only know that I'm in California and you're somewhere else if we have a relative relationship there. If we were in the absolute, there'd be nowhere to go and you'd be everywhere at the same time. So God cannot be known as. The absolute God by necessity is the capital G-O-D of little G-O-Ds. Religious wars are all fought over little G-O-Ds. Any God that can be known or fought over isn't God. It's an idea. That's paganism. That's idol worship. And that, paradoxically, is not monotheism. The Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, are monotheistic religions, which means essentially they believe in one God. There is no God before me, no God above me, no God below me. Yet these three religions happen to be the most warring. In my philosophy, anyone fighting over God is making a clear statement that they don't yet understand what God is. So these are things we need to be pondering. Okay? If you look at the full spectrum of electromagnetic possibilities, the human brain and being can only function, as you see my arrow, in a tiny area. This represents the visual spectrum. But this also gives us an example of how absolutely tiny of a slice of reality that we are accessing with our own human sensory system. So anybody that claims to be giving you any kind of absolute truth cannot possibly do that with a mind, a human mind or otherwise. So when it comes to commandments then, remember, God means undivided wholeness, unconditional love, absolute. God's mathematically equivalent to a zero. 0 times or divided by anything equals 0. So therefore, God can't say no. If you want to fight a war over God and spill blood everywhere, God never says no. Everyone says God's on their side. Hey, they're 100% right, aren't they? God's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. God supports your wishes. Ask and you shall receive. Be careful what you pray for. So on the right, we see Moses delivering the 10 Commandments. Well, let's get clear. The 10 Commandments are supposed to have come from God, but God couldn't speak. That would be to create a condition. God simply is. Because God is absolute, paradoxically, anything that we perceive to be this or that can only be a virtual reality. If a 0 gives birth to a 1, the 1 can't be any more real than the 0 is. So paradoxically, the 0 is no thing and everything, and all we can perceive is whatever vibrations we can pick up out of the wholeness. So we can take pieces of the pie of consciousness, but we can never take the whole thing and come back to know about it, because there's nothing to know in wholeness. If you're full, you have no desire, then what need would there be to think? So thank you for sharing with me today. I'll look forward to sharing in our next lesson. Here's some resources that cover topics like we've discussed today. And in our next lesson, we will talk about comparing ethics and morals for clear distinction. Thanks for joining me.